Hi, welcome to the Perception Podcast. I am your host, Thomas Casey Zellers, and we are today hopefully going to change your perception on things that you thought you already knew. What inspired you to get into music?
So when I was a young boy, my father, he took me into the city to do this. And then you get to the success point. Well, I know that music is certainly the gateway to someone's soul. But I remember a few years ago, I was looking back and I didn't even realize, I crossed that whole threshold of in my brain of wanting to do this type of work, wanting to do X, Y, Z. It's I crossed that bridge so long ago. I feel like it's kind of an oxymoron in a way. It's like Graffiti Black. You ever heard of the Beatles?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of
Pretty popular.
you're all right. I mean, for the most part, the stuff I shoot is natural. I was I'm having a midlife crisis and I'm 20 years old.
Hi, welcome to the Perception Podcast. I am your host, Thomas Casey Zellers, and we are today hopefully going to change your perception on things that you thought you already knew. Today's guest is a good friend of mine, Jamison Donoho. He's also the frontman to his band Graffiti Black. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
I'm happy to have you on the show. This is going to be so much fun. So yeah, just tell me, and I guess also the viewers as well, just a little bit about yourself, man.
Hey guys, I'm the lead singer of Graffiti Black. I'm a good friend of Thomas's, apparently, and do a lot of creative stuff like yourself. Yep, there's a whole music, photos, videos. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack if you'd like.
What inspired you to get into music?
So when I was a young boy, my father, he took me into the city to
See marching band.
Are you likely you grow up? Yeah, this band made a song about it and stuff. It's crazy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, some up and coming band. Anyway, yeah, I think when I was 9 or 10, my dad got my brothers and I the Beatles #1 CD.
Oh, okay.
You ever heard of the Beatles?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of the
Pretty popular.
you're all right,
Pretty influential to the whole rock
right?
industry.
Yeah, we heard that that compilation of songs, and that's when we got into music. We're oh, music's cool, and I wanted to learn the bass guitar, although I had no idea what bass was at the time, because I was Paul plays it, I want to play. So I wanted the Hofner bass, just like Paul.
Yeah.
And at the time, you asked me can you hear the bass in the song? I was I don't know, but I wanted to learn. But so it's it was really funny.
Yeah.
But that's what got us into music.
Mhm.
And then I think after we heard, so a few years after that, I think I heard Green Day. They did American Idiot.
Mhm.
I heard that album, and then I thought, yeah, I want to learn how to do the whole thing. I want to play guitar. I want to learn bass, the drums. I want to just do everything that encompasses music after that point.
Yeah.
Because I love the production quality on that album. I still do.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that was the starting point of when I said, yeah, I want to absolutely go into music and just go down that whole path with it. And so that's pretty much
so the Beatles and Green Day,
yeah,
two opposite sides of the rock and roll spectrum, really kind of.
yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So that's pretty much what got me into it.
Okay. So what's the meaning behind Graffiti Black?
It's a great question. So I could give you a really fake, super deep meaning, but but there's not really. There, I mean, it's kind of it's a. I feel like it's kind of an oxymoron in a way. It's Graffiti Black. It's here's graffiti typically has all these different colors and all this different stuff going on, and it's black. I really like how it's the wordplay with that.
Mhm.
But honestly, 11 years ago, my brother and I went through an app, and it had a bunch of different colors, and Graffiti Black was one of them. And we stopped on that. We're something's there with that. We don't know what. We just let it sit. Yeah,
Yeah.
you just what? That's a type of color. What? I thought matte black, all these different graffiti. So we're wait, what is that? So we let that sit, and then a month later, we're just let's use that for a band name.
Mhm.
But I mean, the meaning you can derive just from that title itself, it's graffiti in black. You're what? I always thought it was cool. So finally just made a band name out of it, and I just kept it going ever since.
Yeah.
I thought it was really, to me, it was just this little fascinating thing I stuck with.
Yeah. I remember you remember the game Rock Band?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember where you get to like start your like career or whatever, and it said, "What's your band name?" But it like automatically generated a band name for you. And the first one that came up was Donkey Tree Fog. And I didn't change it because I was just like, that's it. That's gold. So I've told myself if ever I start a rock and roll band, it's gonna be Donkey Tree Fog just because of that.
I love Tree Frog. I thought where you're going with that. He's like, Graffiti Black sounds like an AI generated. I thought that's what you were gonna say.
Oh no.
You wouldn't name your band Seafood?
Probably not. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Probably not.
He Tree Frog. I feel like I'm gonna take that and make a song title out of it.
You know what? You know what? Then I'll challenge you right here on the show
Uh-oh.
to find a way in your lyricism, throw in a lyric, Donkey Tree Fog.
Fog or frog?
Fog.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah. Make that work somehow, and we'll see how well that goes. Probably not very well.
Can it be like one? They all have to be back to back, or can it be like donkey line 1, tree somewhere in line 2, and then like the pre-chorus hook hits, and I say fog somewhere in there?
Yeah, you could split it.
All right. We'll get creative.
Yeah.
Creative.
We'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
So what kind of challenges have you really kind of faced when making music? So like whenever you first started the band to where it is now, like what has been the biggest hill that you've had to climb, and what are some stuff that you still find daily, I guess, with it?
Like when you started writing music as opposed to now?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's like there's an analogy I think Alex Hormozy said in one of his videos that I like always stuck with. Where it's like no matter what thing that you start, whether it's like a hobby with music, or you're like diehard about music and you want to just totally get into it, or you want to take any other hobby or career path, you have like this thing where you start. It's showing like this graph where you start on the left side saying there's uninformed enthusiasm, I think, where that's how you start, and it's like right before like this little tiny hill.
Okay.
We're like, this is awesome. I don't know anything about it, but it's awesome. And then you kind of like come over a little more. Then you're like informed unenthusiasm or something like that. We're like, oh, now I know a little bit, and like all the challenge that it's going to take to like actually get anywhere. And then like here's this huge like dip, and it's supposed to be like the valley of despair or something, where you're like, you realize how hard all this is, and you're like, I hate this. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And then if you stick with it,
Uh-huh.
and the whole point of his analogy is a lot of people don't. They get into one pit and then they keep going to the next thing. But, you get past that, and then it's, and then you get back into like, oh, you're enthusiastic about it. You're finding hope with it again, or joy or whatever.
Like waves of inspiration.
Sure. Like you get past that despair point, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to stick with it anyway. And then so like, let's say after you put your 10,000 hours in, you get actually good with writing songs.
Yeah.
Because there's so many songs I've written where it's just, those are never going to go, like no one's going to hear this.
Yeah.
So after you write a bunch of those and you get to the point, oh, like I wrote one song that's good, it's like, that's past the despair point.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this is actually cool again. And then you keep going. You're like, now you're like really pumped about it. And then you get to the final like success point, which is so you do this, and then you get to the success point. So it's like that, where for so long, you're just eating crap basically, because you're trying to learn how to play this instrument, or you want to learn to sing, and it's like forever. Or even like when I was playing drums growing up, my parents dealt with horrible offbeat playing in their basement for years. Well, it's so bad. And I remember like it took me forever to get like the most basic fills. And then after that point, I was able to do really complicated stuff and go crazy with it. I remember there was one point where I had some friends over. I had to go upstairs and grab some stuff, and one of them got on the drum set, and I was like, oh, that's really loud. And then it just dawned on me, like, my parents put up with this for so many years, and the bad playing on top of it. I'm like, oh. So like I really like was encouraged by that, but I was also like, that reminded me how grateful I was for parents that were that supportive, because there were so many friends I had growing up where like we like drums or music came up, and they, I was like, oh, I played drums all the time in my basement, and they would just quickly say how shut down they were because their parents would just never tolerate stuff like that. So just very grateful for seeing stuff like that. But yeah, it's just there's such a learning curve, and it just takes so long to like even learn how to play the drum set because you're using all four limbs when you're playing that. And I could just remember vividly now like how awful I was trying to do just the most basic stuff when I was 10 or whatever. And here I am, like I'm about to turn 31, and I'm it's like able to still play it and just like be really into it. So yeah, man, it's quite the journey.
What was the first instrument you learned?
Drums.
Drums. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you said you wanted to do bass whenever you heard the Beatles.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was already learning drums at that point because I got into percussion in school in like 4th grade.
Okay.
And I had a chrome half rusted out drum set that I was already playing on. But yeah, I started with drums. My dad showed me one basic beat, and then I just took it from there.
Just kind of ride the coattails a little bit there.
Mhm.
So drums was the first. What was probably the most difficult to learn? Was it drums or
I'd say drums and guitar.
drums and guitar? Okay.
Yeah.
What made guitar difficult?
I mean, when you go from bass, you had these huge thick strings, and then on guitar, you got these smaller ones, but you're using all of your fingers pretty much for like making chords. I
Well,
remember
we're also using a different because there's bass and then treble, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're having to learn different notes too, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you're taking all of your fingers and you're making a chord on guitar, it's like that's different from just hitting one, depending on how you play bass, you're hitting one fret per finger. It's like that's the bass root of the chords on guitar and whatnot. So yeah, and I remember when I was in 8th grade, I was at one of my friends' houses at the time, and we were playing music because he was on drums, I was on guitar, and we just went through like so many Green Day songs and a bunch of these other pop punk bands at the time. But we were playing for just hours on end, and I was new to guitar then. But it's like a bunch of 3-chord songs, just different. So I remember looking down after like 2.5 hours, and my hand was just bloody, just blood everywhere. I was like, oh, that's cool, I guess. I was like,
A real rock star. Nick.
yeah, I was like, so like I think there's still some blood on that Stratocaster, by the way. I should probably clean that off. There's still stuff. There's like, it's not a lot. They're just traces. It's like, oh, there's a little peppered here and there. It's like, that was cool. I guess.
Someone was murdered over this Stratocaster. We have to find out who it was.
In the name of rock.
In the name of rock.
Yeah, so it's for a good cause.
Yep. So whenever you make a song, like what usually comes first, or is it kind of different? Like, do you start with the lyricism, like you think of some cool lyrics, or is it like the music inspires the lyrics and you think of like a cool beat, or how's that kind of?
It's a good question. It's there's a few different ways that I've done it, but it is kind of how you just mentioned. Like, is it different things that can get one going? One way I've done it is I have thought of a melody, and maybe there's some words, maybe there isn't, but for the most part, it started with a melody. You get that down, you're like, okay, cool. And then if I can have like some chords that come around it that I know, like, okay, this could work with guitar, or I can get like, here's a few chords that work with it. If I just get that down, I will literally hear everything else around it, which is weird. I mean, I'll just picture what the drums sound like with that hook or whatever it is I'm coming up with. It's happened a lot like that.
Okay.
Which is kind of weird to explain, but I'll just hear it. And I don't really know what it is, but it's like I'm hearing this drum pattern going with it. And then I'll just kind of like sit on the kit, try to match that, or come up with a drum fill that's matching that feel, what I'm trying to express through it. And then there's other times where like a year ago or a few years ago, I was just creating drum beats. And I thought, just for the sake of changing up how I write stuff, I'm just taking this drum beat, drum fill, and then seeing what I can sculpt around it, just to see what would happen.
Yeah.
So
what did come of that?
Well, there's one song I have actually. It's called "Ring of Fire" that I will have out sometime soon in 2025.
Okay.
But that was like a drum beat that I was doing, and it was also bass guitar, and I just crafted around those two, and so that one would be cool to share at some point. But yeah, there's that one, and there's another one I wanted to make that I came up with a year ago, where I purposely wanted to try coming up with a Blink-182 feel, because Travis Barker always has those really crazy complex drum fills that he makes for like intros on songs, and then the song starts.
Yeah.
I wanted to just create my own flavor of that and see what that looked like. So I haven't finished that one yet.
Yeah.
But that's like that would be a perfect example to showcase if I ever make that one.
Is it difficult to, because music isn't just, just banging drums and strumming the guitar or anything like that. Well, but whenever you're now making the emotions to go along with the lyrics of the song, is that a different challenge for you to have to change up the music a little bit to hit those emotional notes a little bit better? Or
yeah, going back to that Ring of Fire song, I came up with it 3 years ago. Like I came up with the skeleton of it in 10 minutes, and I couldn't find the right words that would convey what I was trying to put through the song. And it was like over this past year, I found like the 2 verses and like part of the chorus that would work, and I just I was able to come up with it like that, but it's like over 3 years.
Yeah, so it's not like an immediate thing. It takes time.
It can happen like that.
Yeah.
There's some songs that are written in 10 minutes, other ones like a few years.
Yeah.
But yeah, like sometimes you just have that understanding of how you want to craft this song. You're like, okay, these words can go with it, and that really hits home. Other times, you just have to let it marinate, gotta let it sit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever you finish the song, usually what's next in that process for you? Because you produce your own songs, or do you have someone else kind of?
It's been both.
It's been both? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just make a demo track of it,
Mhm.
see if that one is good the way it is, how everything's currently recorded and structured. If it is, then I just move on to getting it professionally done, where I record all of the final like stems.
Mhm.
Either I mix and master it myself, or I'll send it off to someone and have them do it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So what speaks to you spiritually about music? Like, when did you know that this was your calling, this is what you were led to do, and like how have you really kind of noticed yourself using that?
It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've wondered about like what is my calling, because there's the photography that I do. There's all of that's developed. No pun intended. There's the photography and the music. And so I look at those two and I think, well, for what I'm doing in music, like how does this honor God? How does it honor Christ?
Mhm.
And I have wondered about that and wrestled with it, because like there's songs I've written that I'm just like, how is this glorifying God? Whether it's just even like the music video I shot last week for the song Thinking About You, it's just kind of based on like, oh, here's this girl. This dude is like, oh man, like the girl's like stuck in my head. So it's like, how does something like that honor God? But I also look at even if you're not necessarily glorifying God in that song, I think of other ways where you actively can, even if it's not like literally just within the art you're creating. Like let's say, for example, you have a show or something and you have people that come to it. It's like you can, at the end of your show, like pray for people. You can do stuff like that where you're just more proactive and out there, like engaging people.
Yeah.
There's ways you can do it that way.
Brian, I can't remember his name, but Brian, he's a guitarist for the band Korn.
Yeah.
Well-known devout Christian. Does exactly what you were just talking about.
He prays for people at shows?
Mhm.
That's cool.
Mhm.
That's dope. Respect.
Yeah.
Brian, if you see this, respect.
Then I guess let me challenge you. Like, is there a moment in you ever that you're like, well, maybe I should maybe try to make a song that is angled more towards Christ, or how's that kind of go with you personally, if you don't mind me digging deep here a little bit?
Dude, I keep like referencing like some of the same songs, and like I'm not trying to, but like in certain songs I've like said like pray to Jesus, or like in the song Ring of Fire, I'm like say amen and pray to Jesus, because it's about the song itself is about looking at people that will like mock you or slander you, and basically turning away from that and like just like seeking God. It's like really it's not in the forefront of it, but
Sure.
like that's an underlying theme to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've thought with like, let's say, you know, if we want to say worship music,
Mhm.
I've just thought I've wanted to make it where it's not bland. And I hate to like say that,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of worship music that is just straight up bland and forgettable.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Because it's the same message over and over again.
not like there's anything wrong with the message. It's just that it's boring to listen to.
Mm.
And I don't think God looks at music and is like, he's probably looking at the heart of that songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so, you know, I'm not going to say like I do or don't know anything there, but I just think if I did write music like that and I just keep thinking more and more, it probably makes sense too.
Mm-hmm.
I just want it to be really well crafted. I
Yeah.
don't want it to like, you could look at this and say, wow, that is like objectively beautiful music.
Yeah.
And that's that's honoring God with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm absolutely open to it. I just want it to be of that caliber.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say then is the biggest way that your music has changed? From whenever you first started to where it is now, like you were just saying with Ring of Fire, how it's got just that subliminal spiritual message. Did you start out like doing worship music like at church whenever you were young, or like when youth group they had the band come up, or um, you know?
Yeah, there was 3 churches that I would do worship music in where I would do drums or it was mainly drums or bass guitar, sometimes guitar. There was GCC, and then there was I think what's now called Faith to Life Church. And then oh man, what's the other one called? It's in Granger. Anyway, there are 3 churches that I would do music in, but songwriting and like the stuff I would create, no, it was you know, I had that pop punk feel to it. I mean, it still has a punk rock vibe to it, but it wasn't like based on anything spiritual or anything that had to do with Jesus. No.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, hey, here's like, you can tell it's deeply rooted in Green Day. It's like, you know, all the chops are there. It sounds tight, but as I grow more with it, I am just much more okay with it becoming its own sound and just letting it go off in different directions. I still am very rooted in wanting it to be like a pristine rock sounding feel.
Sure.
But I'm not trying to like, I need to be something else. I just want it to be its own thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, have its own sound.
And what sound do you think that it started out with to where it is now, really? Like,
Well, it had that like very Green Day feel to it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is super inspired.
Uh-huh.
Like, cool. But now I just want it to be off in its own direction. It's like still figuring it out. I don't have a definite answer on here's exactly what it will be.
Yeah.
But it's just the progression of, you know, of where it was now, just letting it breathe and just, you know, if there's like something I've really gotten into is like, you know, if you look up blues rock or like dark blues type of rock, I always thought it's so cool. Yeah, like something like that, I could imagine in the future could be really awesome, like having some type of dark blues feel to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have a super cool interest in that.
So you have
anything
like an
that.
interest in all genres of rock, or
No,
not really? Just it's okay.
probably like 2 or 3. We niching down.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually saw recently that there was a scientific study done that with science words explains that music is the only art medium that actually activates all 5 senses and is actually something that can actually touch people spiritually and actually heal them and whatnot. Do you do you agree with that, or do you notice that through yourself or through how other people take music? Because I know that there are songs that I've listened to and been like, wow, like that really kind of touched me.
That it can heal people?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I don't know. But I know that music is certainly the gateway to someone's soul. I really do believe that.
Yeah.
And the stuff you listen to certainly influences you. So actually going back earlier to one of your questions, I think it was like, how has music changed? Or so, one way that it's changed for me is I'm always second guessing the type of music I am listening to. and you feel like, well, you know, as much as I love American Idiot, I'll listen to that and be like, I don't know if I should be listening to this.
Is that a conviction?
Partly, yeah.
Partly.
Yeah. So it's just like, well, why'd you make me like this music? You know, I'm just like, okay. So yeah, I'll look at stuff like that and I will feel conviction sometimes. I'm like, this stuff that I grew up with and like I spent so much time involved in, it makes me wonder, well, is this like stuff that I should put down? You know, because I've come to a fork in the road where I'm like, yeah, I have gifts in this stuff and I can do it well. Same time, like, if this is something where it affects me negatively and I can't do it without that affecting me negatively, then I would be fine with putting it down. If God says, hey, you should like put this down, I would do it. Not saying I would like that. I would like, okay, fine. Like, but I would do it.
Yeah.
And it's been like, so that's something I've wrestled with.
Hmm.
Yeah. However, if it's something where I can like do it and it doesn't alter me or it doesn't distance me from God,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, yeah, sure. I would, you know, it's like, but that's a big if.
Yeah. Have you ever felt your music or any music that you listen to has divided you or pulled you away from God?
Well, like specifically going out and playing shows, there's been times where I'm like, I feel like I'm like, I would find myself like drinking more than I typically should, which when I'm saying typically should, it's like, I don't drink. It's like, but I would just like, I would be engaging in like the way my behavior would change at times. I would just really start to question. I'm like, this seems odd, or like I should be like reanalyzing this.
Hmm.
So there's things like that. However, if there's like a different approach where it's like this works or it makes sense, or even, you know, something I even thought about today
Mhm.
is if I were just really if I really set my sights on saying music would have a direction that's specifically geared towards Christ, whatever that looks like.
Mhm.
That to me would honestly bring way more meaning and substance to say, this is something that I am for sure like just absolutely jumping into. Cause like
Yeah.
the music I'm doing stuff right now, it's like, yes, I am active in it and I'm doing it and I'm creating music videos, making all the content for online stuff.
Yeah.
It's great, but the substance of it, it's like it's more shallow. Like it just is.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the nature of it, I think. But I think if you actually like if I set my sights where I said Christ is to be within the center of it totally,
Mm-hmm.
that would probably like totally change like the projection of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that answered your question at all. So anyway, yeah, like what's your favorite color?
Yeah. Hey, what is your favorite color? Oh, graffiti black. No, so when did you, I guess, kind of realize, 'cause, I mean, you touched on it briefly there for a second, but when did you kind of realize that you can use your talents, your music, for God and less selfishly, you more selflessly?
It's just been in the back of my mind brewing for a few years.
Mm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Where you're starting to think about it a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, like point blank,
Mm-hmm.
it's just that. And it makes you wonder like, well, what could you do?
Mhm.
But yeah, that's just been in the back of my mind for a few years. And I thought, well, it wouldn't be too far off to like actually make it just.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Is there a future for Christian punk rock?
That's a great question. If it honors Christ, if it honors God, there could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you put yourself in maybe like the Skillet area?
Oh no.
No.
Then have me. I didn't mean like, oh no. I just meant like, oh, I don't like, oh no. Like, is that dad rock? What is
Skillet?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up listening to Skillet, so yeah, I'd probably say some form of like Christian dad rock or something like that.
I don't
A
know.
little edgier stuff.
I don't know, man. I just try to make music that sounds good.
Hey, that's plan A, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a common misperception I think that people have about music or creating music, and that it's easy. All you got to do is just learn an instrument, or you just got to learn how to sing, and then whenever you're on stage, it's just a bunch of like different hand motions and learning how to dance. But like like you've been saying, there's a lot that goes into music. So how would you, I guess, change that perception? What would you tell people?
I mean, if they can learn an instrument like that, and then they can do the hand motions or whatever it is you said, then absolutely, it's easy. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's definitely not easy. There's a ton of time it goes into it to like just develop the skill. Or actually, you know what? Here's another way to put it. So like, let's talk about, someone learning an instrument and then someone being a performer. I think those are two really huge distinctions.
Okay.
So it does go hand in hand with how you are talking about, like how easy or difficult it is.
Yeah.
So it's difficult
Mhm.
to learn how to do an instrument, but then it's also difficult how to go from learning an instrument to being a performer with the instrument. So there's like two gaps bridged right there.
Okay.
I know so many awesome musicians that are great at being musicians.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some people I know who are awesome with being performers because they are great at just being able to get on a stage in front of people and they can just kill it.
Mm-hmm.
They have presence to them.
Take that
And-
nervous energy and transform it. And
Well, they just
something great with
they understand how a show works, and there's musicians that are like they're great at they can learn like there's so many musicians that I know who are far superior to their instrument than me.
mm-hmm.
But you put them in front of a crowd and they just lock up. They're just they don't do it because that's a learned thing that you have to learn how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many musicians that I've like, and just no disrespect, but they just they're not meant to be performers like in front of crowds and like do the shows. So
Sure.
it's very individualistic, I
Mhm.
think, just because like yeah, I mean it's like there's people I played with where they're awesome but they'll just be things where it's totally out of their comfort zone where they're like they don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't a problem, but it's just understanding that difference.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is something I learned like well after the fact where I was like, oh, some musicians, like they're good at just like being their own thing, doing their thing. It's like you have to go that extra mile to like know how to perform
Mm-hmm.
in front of people.
And how did you learn, I guess, how to perform while also maintaining, like, hitting the notes perfectly? Like, because I mean, throwing yourself around on a stage and whatnot seems difficult. Like, yeah, you know the next notes and whatnot, but how do you do that skillfully, I guess? Like, how long did that take?
Well, you just do it over and over again. You just beat that horse to death until you're like, cool, I can do this now. Because you're not gonna do it like perfectly.
Repetition. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's times where you just go up there and you're like, however it goes, however it goes.
Yeah.
Like there's times I've been up there, I'm like, I'm about to rip into this next song, and then boom, 2 strings snap off. And you're like, all right, I'm gonna figure this out on the go. So there's like crazy stuff like that, but it's how you roll with it.
Mhm.
There's like musicians where the moment they screw up on stage, they're like, I'm gonna stop the song because I messed up. You're like, why would you do that? It's like, don't let them know you messed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just how, whatever, you just kind of got to roll with it. If people don't know you messed up until you make it, until you let them know you messed up.
Let them know.
Just
Yeah.
roll with it. You
Yeah.
know? So yeah, that's it.
Have you ever had a big stage mishap?
Well, there's the string snapping. Yeah.
Oh, that was a personal experience then.
No, yeah, for real. Like I was like, let's go. And then it snapped and I was like, cool. Just get through this song and it's going to sound like crap, but whatever. I know there's tons of shows where I played as the drummer and then a bunch where I played as the guitarist and like leading it.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to think like what was one of the weirdest things that happened. I know like one time when I was playing, there was like a drunk lady that was just off to the side, just like being belligerent, just like she was like, Blade smoking the water. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. Like, okay. But yeah, it was like goofy stuff like that. But yeah, there's just times where either string snaps or like your mic just doesn't work.
Mhm.
So that's fun. Or like there was one time where I was playing like acoustic shows and like the cord on my guitar like was going out. And so when that happens, like you start getting like don't smell the guitar. You're just like, oh no. So like the nervous sweats immediately, like, dude, like I'm telling you, like just sweat city,
Yeah.
it would be crazy. Like how you just have that anxiety that just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But you just panic through it. You're like, I'm having a midnight. Like, why am I here doing this?
It could almost be a Panic at the Disco.
So it could be exactly like that.
Sure, yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to give myself an A for that one. I thought that was funny.
Can we After Effects in a star or whatever it was you just
Can we do that? Can we throw in a little thumbs up in there? Well,
like absolutely not.
So run your own studio. How long did it eventually, I guess, take you to get to that point? Was that when did that really kind of become a goal for you?
I've always wanted a photography studio, and it was kind of like the opportunity presented itself. I wasn't sure if I was ready for it, but I just know I needed one at the time.
Mm-hmm. You just needed a place to be home base, essentially.
Yeah, like I didn't like living with my gear, oddly enough. There's way too much of it that I have. And yeah, they were like, hey, this actually, when I found it, it wasn't available at the time, but they're like, there's a chance it may. And also fun facts, it's just been over 2 years and 1 month since I did get the space.
Oh, wow.
So
Really?
pretty cool. Yeah. I was realizing that last month and I was like, well, hot dog. I was like, this is cool. Yeah. So, but at the time it was like September of 2022 or August, but I just needed a place and I was praying about it. I said, Lord, I'm just believing I will have it. And I was like, thank you. And I just forgot about it.
Yeah.
I just dealt with what I could. But yeah, it showed up, it revealed itself, and the guy was like, you can try it. And I just totally stepped out on faith with it because I was like, I don't even know this would be a spot people want to go to for sessions. Like, because I was just unsure about it. Like,
Sure.
the only experience I've had with studios is renting different ones out. And I had to bring my gear there, set it up, do the session, tear it down, bring it back. And it was exhausting. So, yeah, just being able to have something like that work out. I believe it was divine intervention. I think God was just like, here you go. So ever since having that space, it really did transform like how I do business. I've been able to do like 99% of my photography sessions there. And it's really been a blessing, just to say the least. Like,
Yeah.
it really has.
Yeah. Because I know that there are people that still to this day will want to just eventually just work for themselves. A lot of people just can't deal with, authority over them. So it must be real nice to just be your own boss and to have your own schedule and really just kind of do whatever you want, really.
Yeah, I'd say it's a double-edged sword because you do have to be, I mean, you are the business. You're it. If you're sick or something, you gotta, you can have things in place that can work for you, but yeah, you are it and you have to be extremely diligent about it. So, yeah, but just, it is great. It's nice. I remember just times where even like 10 years ago, I was a cook in a kitchen for a nursery home and I would, it was like a 45-minute drive and I was doing a morning shift. So I would be waking up at like, oh my God, like 3 a.m. and I would drive there and be there at 4, opening everything up. Like it was nuts, dude. Like looking back at that, I was like, why was I doing that? But, I'm just like, I'm super thankful, just to say the least. I'm so thankful that like, I actually just, every time I go in there, man, I'll just be like, God, I'm so thankful for this. I can't help but like, just be grateful for it every time I get in there and I leave. I'm like, you can just, cause like, yeah, it's like even over the past few months, it's like we put in like, did I show you that system of like all the different backdrops? Yeah. It's like having that in there. Like that was a vision where I was like, there's no way that'll work in here. And it's like, so my dad and I like bought the stuff and we just started setting it up. I'm like, oh, it's fine. It works.
Yeah.
I was just like, is this going to work?
Yeah.
But it's like, dude, it's been such a blessing, just to say the least.
Was there a moment whenever you were kind of just in that mundane, waking up 3 a.m., that you kind of felt unsure of yourself or where your path was going to take you?
Yeah. I was like, I'm having a midlife crisis and I'm like 20 years old. Yeah, man. I was just like, I don't know, dude. It was so many years of yeah, even like right before that time, just feeling straight up lost.
Mm.
Straight up lost. Like I remember there were times I was like, what am I like, what am I doing? And you didn't know. It's like just taking the next step forward each time, just trying to figure out like just even camera stuff. I remember there was even around that same time,
Mm-hmm.
I would book sessions with people, which meant I was asking people to come and do a shoot with me just so I can like photograph people. And I was like absolutely scared to death to like even do it, you know.
Why was that?
Dude, I was like, I'm just gonna throw up right now. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I would just get nervous of doing that because I was like, what if I screw up? What if like the shot doesn't look good? What if
Oh, just the what if anxiety is just
yeah, and
yeah.
it's like, man, just photograph the person. Like, you're not doing open heart surgery. You're photographing someone.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I love to talk about like how to do the ins and outs of properly photographing someone, it's like just do it. If it sucks, then do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's something I tell myself all the time. It's like if I woke up as a senior in high school and I was like, I just want to do photography and like photograph people, it's like
Mhm.
you would just repeat that like a maniac of like every day I'm photographing a new person.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make all these images suck, but I'm gonna keep doing it. You know, it's like I just wish I did it like that, but
Yeah.
whatever, you learn.
Yeah.
So
Was there ever a backup plan or were you just dead set on no, like I am going to be a musician?
well, I mean, like right now, my main thing I do is photography.
Mhm.
That's my main thing, and music has become secondary. But when I started, it was like, I want to do photography, I want to do video, I want to do music. And I was going after all those 110% on each one.
Okay.
And that's a great way to spin your wheels and make no progress.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't recommend doing that. But, you know, over the years, you're just becoming a little more like you have a little more wisdom on it. And you say, hey, you know what? Here's this past experience and how that went.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just scale everything back but one and make sure you kill it in that arena. After you reach a threshold you're fine with, it's like, cool, then bring stuff back in a little more. But
Mm-hmm.
that to me, it's just, that makes sense instead of trying to do a billion different things at the same time. Cause now you're an ace at nothing.
Mm.
So I'm just like, I want to be really awesome at one thing, and then bring other stuff back in.
Bring other stuff in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So was there a time where maybe you thought like, well, if that doesn't work out, maybe I should look into like, say like a full-time job, like, or like, did you go to college? Like, did you study something else or?
I did not go to college, and yeah, there's times of doubt that you certainly face where you're like, am I able to do this? Am
Mhm.
I not? Am I making a mistake? Yeah, I think those are totally real thoughts that I think a lot of entrepreneurs deal with.
Yeah.
And they want to take on the sacrifices of like, hey, I don't want to work 40 hours a week, so I'm going to work 90 on my own thing. That's an exaggeration, but I'm just saying.
I was gonna say that's tense.
No, this is a joke. Yeah, but I mean, there's yeah, you definitely deal with periods where you're like, uh, how do you become more efficient at something, or you just, you know, yeah, you definitely have seasons where you're like, you know, are you doubting it or whatever? So
Mhm.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So whenever you're working at the studio, like that's your workplace. So are you there every single day, uh, treating it as though it's like your like quote unquote work office?
Mhm.
Um, okay. So is it like a normal like 8-hour day for you? Like you spend 8 hours in that office or?
It can be, you know, sometimes it's 4 hours, or because like I'll go in there and I'm either like calling leads for
Mhm.
photo shoots, or I have something that has to get edited and sent out, or you know, unless I have a retoucher working on that, or I'm doing photo shoots in there. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like a culmination of those three things. Or you know, half of the studio is also music. So like there's people I'll have come in sometimes where I record them. So there is that too.
Mhm.
Um, or I'll just be working on a project in there. So it's like a culmination of a few different things going on in there. But it's those main three of like, if I have leads to call, I like to do it there.
Yeah.
Um, or photo shoots and whatnot. So
Yeah. So whenever you do photography, what is the biggest, I guess, creative difference from photography to music, really, other than obviously the big one being a visual. What kind of differences do you notice?
The biggest difference between video and photo, you said?
Or video and music, really?
Sorry. Dude, that's a hard question to answer. It shouldn't be, but it is. A different way of thinking entirely, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to put it. Yeah, is the way you go about music. You're what's a good way to put it? I mean, just the way my brain works around it is entirely different from like photography to music. Because photography, it's like you're working with a person and you need to. It's a bit of an emotional roller coaster for that client.
Okay.
Because like people are like they want to do shoots and they're like, "Yo, I hate how I look," but they want to do it.
But they want to do
They want to look good doing it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you got to deal. It's like, it's almost like a therapy session sometimes, but you're like legit. But you work with this person and you're just learning how they are and how to counteract what they're going through or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all kind of on the fly too. It's like if you don't know what you're doing, you're in trouble. So, but it's like the times where I feel like I just don't know. It's like it's very, very small. But yeah, it's very much like you have that whole session going on with a person, and you're working with them. It's a very step by step collaborative process. And then with music, it's all like I'm seeing this in my head, and then I'm laying it out in front of me. And it's unless I'm recording someone else, it's very much like I'm doing this all on my own. And you're just approaching it from a different spot of creativity where like sometimes you're just like, I want to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what is working with the song just to like shake things up.
Yeah.
Or you just get to be in a bubble of creativity where you just want to try something, or you're just going. You're like, when you hit flow state with something,
Yeah.
you're like, let's go. And it like when that hits for music, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that totally answers your question, but yeah, it's just two different lanes of thinking entirely.
Yeah. Whenever you're collaborating with somebody musically, like is that hard? Because I mean that's two creative people now, or more creative people all in a room together. Is it hard to like kind of come together at times, or do you find it to be very easy for you to just kind of go with the flow?
It's been easier when I'm by myself, but I like working with other people. I notice when I let go of expectations and I stop being so like I think especially when you work with other people, you want to like kill it. But I think when you can let go of expectations, you're like, this is however this goes, we're just gonna let it go. When I get into that zone with another person, that's when it becomes very fun.
Okay.
And that should be my goal from the get-go, is like, is this fun? But I'm very intense sometimes just by nature with things I'll be doing. So I'm like, I want this to be amazing. But at the time, you got to just like chill and like let it go.
Yeah.
And when I do that, it's really fun. I love doing it.
Who's your favorite person that you've collaborated with? I'm going to put you on the spot right now.
I don't think I have a favorite person. One of my worst ones, though, is some guy named Thomas. Man, that guy. Yeah.
So I want to ask you more now about photography. What kind of drew you to that, really, then?
So when I was a young boy, I was like, oh my God, man. So let's go back to 2010.
2010.
That was like half a lifetime ago, almost. You remember the iPod touches?
Yes. Yeah, they had the iPhone, and then they made the knockoff iPod Touch. Yeah, I remember that.
I had one of those, and I was taking photos with it constantly, and I was like, yo, there's something to this. But I want to do this, man. That's where I birthed it out. I was like, photos. My grandma saw me do that for like a year and a half, and she was like, yo, man, here's an actual camera. Just gave me my very first.
Exactly like that. Like, yo, man.
Word for word. Like,
Yeah.
hey, dogs. Haha.
Verbatim.
For sure. That's how my grandma talks, definitely. Yeah, she gave me my very first camera, which is a Canon Rebel T3i. Shout out to the Rebel series. Awesome camera. I still have it. But she gave me my first camera there, and that's like where it all started. And I just knew like there's a future in this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where did that passion really kind of come from? Really, was it just that little moment, or did it just kind of like, yeah, this is cool? Like started off as like a hobby.
Yeah. I mean, it started off as like a very serious hobby.
Okay.
Dude, I would even go back even further with like the iPod touches. Like you even remember like those like there's flip phones and there's like the slide phones like this.
Yeah.
I think I had like one of those slide phones and it had a camera on there and like the way I was shooting with it, I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But it's like it had to have just spawned somewhere in that time period where I'm like, I just want to take photos. I want to like get into it. But oh man, I just remember like when I got that very first camera, like I was sitting there because it was like brand new. Like I'm taking this thing out of the box. There's a second lens I got with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had all of it like in front of me. And I was like, this is a cool, like I'm gonna remember this moment.
Yeah.
And like I still remember it. It was like 1 a.m. And I was just like, yeah, like I would the next day, it's like I had it. Dude, I remember all of senior year, I was just photographing everything at Edwardsburg High School. And I even like I never made it into the yearbook team for whatever reason.
I was just about to ask you if you were a part of the yearbook.
But they would constantly ask me for my work. I was like, dog, how are you gonna be like that, dude? It was crazy. Like they were like, can we use these? And I was like, I guess.
Okay.
Fine, but like I'm most enthusiastic on this squad.
Is there something for me? Like,
But I was using it all the time and everything. And so, yeah, it was an incredibly serious hobby, but I knew there was some type of future with it for sure.
how does photography speak to you spiritually?
Oh man, I don't know.
Because I mean, I've seen your photos of like you have a bunch of people and just in the studio, you do headshots, you do pictures of animals, but you also have people in nature, and it's just like, I mean, for just man to man, just me to you, I think you really do have like a really good eye for being able to capture just the beauty and really just kind of like the eyes of people.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. One thing I remember too is like when I was starting out, I remember there were things where I think I probably struggled more than most with a camera, trying to understand the shutter speed, the aperture, the ISO, white balance, like trying to work that for whatever reason, my brain was just like, it would not like, it just took so long to figure it out. And I just remember looking at that and also how other photographers would shoot. And I was just like speechless on how to bridge the gap. Cause like, you don't know what you don't know. But I remember a few years ago, I was looking back and like, oh, like I didn't even realize like I crossed that whole threshold of in my brain of like wanting to do this type of work, wanting to do X, Y, Z. It's like I crossed that bridge like so long ago. I didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting to me because the way I struggled with that stuff, it felt so unique. Like never gonna get this. Just never gonna figure it out. But then like years later, you look back and you're like, oh, I figured that out several years ago. Yeah. So like that was a very encouraging just reminder of, yeah, it's like all the stuff you think you're not like you're going to struggle with that you think is like so hard to do. It's actually not nearly as hard as you think. It's just like slowing down and really analyzing it. But yeah, like that was super encouraging to realize.
Yeah. Because I think one of my favorite photos that you've taken, I don't know when you took it, but it was, maybe a senior photo. I can't remember, but it was the girl near a tree and just the way that the sun was coming through.
Like a fall photo.
Yeah, fall photo. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
And I think that that's one of my favorites because it's just like, I don't know. It's just something about the nature of it and just how that whole framing just looked. It just is just beautiful.
Cool. Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
That was actually of another artist. Her name's shoot. Hold on. What's her last name? I got. Hold on. Wait. What's her name? We'll be right back. We'll figure it out in a minute. We'll figure it out. Put that back. Yeah. Yeah, but that was another artist that I photographed. She goes back and forth to like Nashville and she's over in Detroit and stuff. So she like, she's in Grand Rapids, but yeah, she has a lot going on. She's really cool.
Yeah. How did photography speak to you spiritually?
Dude, that's what an interesting question.
Well, like whenever you sit there with a camera,
Uh-huh.
are you actively thinking like, how do I best capture the beauty of God and what He's got in front of me, or how's that? Like, what's your mindset usually?
Well, you know what? I've actually struggled with the question of like, how does this glorify God?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best way I can currently answer it is like, God has definitely directed me away from types of photography He does not want me to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's like, I've looked at like, how is this serving people? I think that's another way to like angle it.
Sure.
And I think you could say like with the way you, and it's kind of like, you know, the example I brought up of like, if you're a musician and it's like maybe your song isn't directly glorifying God, it's how you are as a person through that. You know, like if you're at shows and you're praying for people, it's like that is just a super direct way of like having God like be one of like you're directly like potentially leading people to God, or at least planting the seed.
Yeah.
And I kind of look at photography the same way, where it's like maybe that photography in and of itself isn't like, here's a total like crystal clear, oh, God's in that. I don't know. But I think if you can still be a steward in another way where you are able to just, you know, it's like either you can pray for them, or there's another way where just you as a person, the way you are acting and the way you serve that person, it's like that's a very like that picture in and of itself could say that's a very like that is like an image of Christ or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's like other ways I look at it, because like, you know, I mainly do photos of people with their pets or the pets, and then I do the headshots.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know exactly how those types right there can necessarily glorify him. But I just try to look at in other ways, like, well, you know, with the way you conduct yourself, the way you are attentive to them, or how well you serve. Or
Am I acting out of the Holy Spirit? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the best way I'm able to like articulate all that.
Okay. So whenever you're working in studio, do you have like a favorite backdrop that you like to use sometimes, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's like this textured like shoot, I wonder if I could even, it's actually like I did a photo shoot with this girl who brought her dog in, this tiny like Maltese mix dog, and I had this like white textured type of backdrop, or it's like gray, it's like different shades of gray and it's like textured. It's a photo I actually used for my pet session ad on Facebook.
Okay.
But that's like my favorite one because it has a little bit of this like a classical look to it, or it's just kind of elegant, you know. It looks really nice because she's like on this little mini ladder and the dog is on this like wooden rustic box, so it just looks dope. I'm like, this is sick.
Yeah.
So I love that one.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite photo you've ever taken that you can try your best to?
There was a selfie I took one time.
It was after the gym. I had my shirt on.
There's a few I've taken where I'm like, this is awesome. I mean, the one I took of oh my God, what is her name? Why am I blanking? Her name is on the spot, and I'm like, is her name right? Her name's Sophie. It's the girl with the fall shot with the girl reaching.
Yeah.
I really like that shot. I think that's like one of my best shots that I've taken.
Yeah. It's my favorite personally. Yeah.
I shot that in August, but I just like edited everything to like have it fall feel.
Yeah.
So like I love editing stuff like that. So that one was super fun. So that's one of mine, I guess. Sure.
Yeah. Whenever you're doing photos, how much of it is actually, well, how much of the stuff that you produce and post, like how much of that is actually natural and how much of it is like heavily edited?
I mean, for the most part, like the stuff I shoot is like natural. I mean, like maybe there's like some acne or some blemishes I remove on people, but I try to keep it as natural as I can. But there might be something where you shoot someone or like you photograph someone out in a field and the sky is like crappy or just doesn't look good or it's blown out and it's just white.
Yeah.
I'll replace that with a different sky, or I'll just make stuff like pop more like that. Or it's just, here's something that is still gonna keep everything real. It's just like adding a little flavor flav, you know.
So using a lot of cameras, do you have any thoughts about people that are using their iPhones for professional photography today?
Dude, there's some people that do it.
Well, they actually just made a movie. I think it was Danny Boyle who produced a whole film with like an iPhone 16.
Dude, we should make a movie with the first iPhone.
With the first iPhone. Oh,
That
God.
piece of crap. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That would be wild if you could pull that off.
Yeah, I've actually seen they make lenses for phones.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
Just a moment. You heard of that brand?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so anyway, sorry. Yeah, this is one of the brand of lenses for phones. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts about people that do that, or?
That's dope. Yeah, like I think that's cool. Like you can get super creative like that and make it work. Like props to you because you can shoot ProRes, like super flat images on iPhone.
Yeah.
Like what? It's ProRes. Like that's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's even like 4K and stuff. So yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing it so you're not looking around a camera all the time?
Oh no.
No. Okay.
And not to like replace stuff professionally. No. Like
yeah. You're married to those cameras.
Well, I mean, they're cameras. They're not like I don't want my 1DX to shoot me a text message in the middle of a shoot. Like I don't want a voicemail to come through. I don't want Instagram going off on that.
Yeah.
Like
even if you have D&D on?
Nope. That'd be wild. Like you're with your client, you're going through these and it's like Snapchat notification. Like, no. Like yeah. So
oh, hold on, I gotta take this call.
Yeah, for real. Can you imagine? Like, yeah, one sec, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's people that do like wedding videos with iPhones. Like that I can see. I can see that because the flexibility, you can work with those things. But for the types of shoots I do and stuff, it just wouldn't make sense.
What's the most beautiful place that you've had to travel? For whether it be for wedding or for just whatever.
Okay. So 2 years ago, summer of 2022, my brother Christian and we filmed our friend Jessica and Andrew's wedding, which was in San Diego, California. And that's my very first time being in California. But we didn't know the exact venue or location where it was going to be. We just knew it was going to be there. So, they paid for our flight and stuff, which is really cool. But we go there and I think we get the address. So my brother and I get in this car and we're driving and we see this house. It's like this huge house on a cliff. It's like way out in the distance. And we look at each other. We're like, dude, there's no way it's going to be it. Like, just do it. So as we get closer, we're like, all right, that's getting like way closer now.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're just like, probably like next to it. And like, but it's the type of drive where you're going up like like it's spiraling up.
Oh yeah.
Like that type of drive where you're like, that's cool, but you're like, that's whack. But we pull up and it's that house, which is not a house. It's a mansion.
Yeah.
And it's nuts. Like it's the craziest venue. If I got like photos or something, I will send that to you because it's cool.
Yeah.
But it's this mansion where you like in the back of it, there's a big pool and everything. And so they had this, like, here's the end of the mansion. And then here's the like little walkway thing like this. And there's a pool out here. And then there's like another little walkway that kind of like connects like a little bridge thing over it.
Sure.
And that's where they were like standing. And they're like holding hands and like they had the person.
They decided their vows on that bridge over the pool.
Well, it's like a big platform. It's not like a bridge.
Oh, okay.
But the view behind them is just like all of San Diego and like the ocean. Yeah. And so like on the side, like, so there's that way. And then on this side, you got hills and stuff. And there's other little fancy mansions over there. So like, okay, cool. We get it. You guys are big shots.
Yeah.
not really, but it was really cool to like witness that. Cause it was just,
Yeah.
we were there the night before, I think 1 or 2 days before when we first pulled up, it was for just running through everything just so you can get an idea of, because like, they have their like rehearsals of weddings.
Yeah.
So we're there just kind of visualizing like where would we set up stuff, but it's nighttime. And you're just seeing all of San Diego lit up and everything and just like different houses with all their lights on and like on these hills and stuff. And Indiana doesn't have that. So it was like, wow, this is so cool to witness.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. That's probably the best venue that I've like shot at and everything. It's beautiful. Yeah, and like the people that owned it, it's like someone was like name dropping, and it's like someone was like, "Oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger was here like 3 days ago." We're like, "Okay, cool."
Yeah.
Like, just so you know, famous people are here.
Yeah.
Not right now, but they were.
Arnold who? I'm Jamison Donoho.
Yeah. Well, I have a camera. No, like that. So whether that was true or not, I don't know, but that was a very cool experience.
Yeah. Is there a place that you've always wanted to go and photograph just the landscape of, or?
Yeah, there's a few places. I would love to go to Ireland, Scotland, Switzerland, Hawaii. I would love to check out those places. Because, like, and if you've ever seen any photos of Switzerland, how it's just like these insane landscapes.
Yeah, just all the Alps, just everywhere.
It almost looks like, when you start up your Windows computer and like the background is like, you're like, I want to go there. Yeah, it's those spots where I'm like, that would be amazing to just witness. Because like Switzerland, that's probably my number one.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have to say mine is probably Santorini, Greece.
Okay, that's like with the buildings on the water.
Yeah, all the white buildings.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that would just be so beautiful to me. Or either that or Norway.
Episode 5 in Santorini.
Hopefully, let's make it happen.
That'd be sick.
No, I'd like Norway too, just because I think it'd just be really cool. It's been a life goal, I guess, like a bucket list for me to see the Northern Lights. And like, yeah, we've seen them here recently in Michigan and some parts of Indiana, but I think it would just be cool I unfortunately just didn't get to see them. And I think that was just due to cloud cover. So if I can like find a really clear night to just look up and then just see a bunch of blue, green, and purple, like that would just blow my mind right out of the front of my skull, I think.
Right out the front.
Yeah.
Rip the dome out. I remember, I'm really weird with like timelines and like when I remember stuff. It was 2006. And I was with my family and we heard about the Northern Lights being seen. And so across from my parents' neighborhood at the time, there's other neighborhood and we like walked there and we were actually just able to see them out in the distance. We're like, oh, there's Northern Lights
right there.
And we're like, that's unusual. And then like the next day or something, we just heard how it was visible. This time when it just happened, it wasn't like that. It's like you took a photo with your phone and then you're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, because you can't like actually see. Yeah,
it wasn't visible like that. So I was disappointed realizing that. But yeah, it's like I was seeing like the green colors back then.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Because I really want to be able to see that.
Yeah.
You said Hawaii. I can tell you right now, if you ever do go to Hawaii, because when my mom retired, she took her big retirement check and spent it on a family vacation to Hawaii.
Whoa.
And we found out that if you want to look for like the commercialism, if you're looking for like the nightlife of Hawaii, you go to Honolulu. But if you're looking for just an escape, you just want to enjoy just some peace and quiet, you go to the Big Island, Kona. And I remember whenever we were there, we went to one of the volcanoes that's there, and it's not like the volcano that we went to wasn't like just spewing lava. It wasn't like that. It was like you're actually looking out and you see a whole landscape. You see like a canyon essentially, and you just see a bunch of steam rising up. And it was definitely a moment to me where it was just like just you don't know how to put a word on it. There's no adjectives for it. And no matter how many photos I would take, it just didn't do it justice. And I've shown people these photos and been like, yeah, like this is what it was like. But like you have to be there to actually see it type of stuff.
Wow.
And then whenever we would do stuff, like just going out to the beach, I remember I grabbed a photo because it's Hawaii, everything is outdoors. So there's like no like indoor restaurant. Like there's like a roof over you, but like there's no like walls or windows. And we had just arrived, the plane just landed. We got to our B&B house and we're just like, yeah, we're hungry. So we're sitting there eating. And I just like look to my left and then there's just ocean, nothing but. It's just blue. There's waves crashing and the sun is setting just over there. And I remember actually like moving myself like that to try to get like the best shot that I could of everything that I was seeing, and I had to take several photos. And it was just, again, just another moment where it was like, man, like, you have to, like, live it. You have to be there to actually see it. So if you ever get to Hawaii, man, definitely, like, definitely try. Definitely try to get to Hawaii. It's awesome.
Yeah, that is really good insight. That also reminded me of, one of the realizations of, like, I've never been to the Grand Canyon,
Uh-huh.
but I've learned how breathtaking it must be
Mhm.
through all the people's experiences that have talked about it.
Yeah.
And just how life size it is and how just gargantuan.
Yeah.
So, like, taking that realization, it's like, yeah, if you're, like, out there, it's like where they're filming Jurassic Park and stuff,
Yeah.
dude, you gotta be like, yo, where's the Stegosaurus? Like, that's gotta be dope. I'm sure that was incredible to experience for sure.
Oh, it's funny you say Jurassic Park, because whenever we were driving to the volcano, I was in the car with my brother, and we actually started playing the Jurassic Park soundtrack over so we had an hour drive. So we had that classic theme, da, 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 da,
Yeah.
playing, and it was
That's
it was funny, but it was also like, wow, like it
Yeah.
felt vicariously like I'm seeing the movie.
I would absolutely do that. But I would be dead serious. I'm like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
That's really cool. There's in Niles, there is someone that has a Jurassic Park Jeep, drives around. I'm like, we're nowhere near anything like that, but that's really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm just like, who owns that thing? I'm like, one day I am getting one of those.
Yeah.
I love Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that was the one that got me into filmmaking, really.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Was
really?
Jurassic Park. I just remember, I don't know, I've always said it because I know way too many people that are in their 30s or closer to 30s. I even know people that are like in their 40s that they just don't know what they want to do with their lives.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've always felt incredibly blessed to, at 6 years old, know what it is that I want to do with my life. And I got that from seeing Jurassic Park, and just like any dinosaur obsessed little boy, it'd be like, wow, like there's dinosaurs in movies. Like, that's so cool. So film was definitely the calling for me at that point. I remember me and my brother, actually, we would fight over who got to be which raptor in the kitchen scene. We would actually fight each other, like, no, I want to jump at the camera. No, I want to be the one that runs after the boy, or something like that. Yeah.
Like, I knew at the age of 6 years old, I wanted to be a dinosaur. Like, well, in 2024, you can identify with whatever you want.
Yeah. I'm a dinosaur.
I am a shoelace. I was gonna say, though, you should definitely have my brother on here.
Yeah.
It'd be because, for one, it's like you guys can talk about endless amounts of just film stuff, and as well as Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, that in as itself. So, like, this is the dinosaur film episode starring Christian. He would have endless things to say. Speaking of that, there's a short film we just did last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like this very spooky. Did I tell you about this?
No, but I saw all the Instagram posts.
Yeah, I abused that, but we did it's mainly all his doing. But
Yeah.
we shot this spooky film in my parents' backyard, and we wanted it to look like this super cinematic, like, how in like at night in these forest scenes, there's like smoky haze and fog, and it just looks ominous and creepy, and the moonlight coming down. Like, that's exactly what we did. I'm not even joking. Like, from what I saw through the camera and everything, it's like I had, external monitors going almost all the time.
Yeah.
And like everything that we were getting, it's like even like half of the cut that's currently been made already of it is just like, this is exactly what we were hoping for.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see stuff like that happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with a director. His name is Shane Hurlbutt.
That'll ring a bell.
He's a pretty big director, and he's in LA. There's like courses and like this whole like club thing that Christian's a part of, with who like he is like the guy that runs it.
Like a masterclass type deal, or
kind of. Yeah, but there was one time he came out to Chicago, and it's just like a meet up and like greet thing.
Oh,
He
okay.
answers a bunch of questions, whatever people would have.
Okay.
But we both went to it.
Uh-huh.
I just kind of like got dragged into it, I guess. But I got well, not dragged, but it's just like this is happening. I'm like, oh, cool, let's go.
Yeah.
But we just hung around and like we just kind of outweighted everyone else, and like to the point where it's just him and us.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "You guys want to get dinner?" And we're like, "Sure." So like we just drove him to like some place. We got to hang out with him
Yeah.
and just ask him questions on like, because I mean he's a dude that's like had. You ever heard of a film called Babysitter on Netflix?
Yes.
He
Yeah.
he directed that,
Okay.
and there's a bunch of other ones he did. It's like I wish I had a better list for you,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's like totally involved in a bunch of really cool stuff.
Wow.
But the thing is, he's so open with information. It's like Christian would just be able to talk to this dude on like, yo, how do I light the thing we just shot? And he's like, well, this, so it's like, he'll just be open about stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was so awesome to just like,
have that resource.
yeah, it's like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not me directly, but it's awesome to just know like that is a thing you can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely awesome. There's probably a lot you could just talk with him about all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So I'd definitely recommend him.
How often do you work with your brother, and like what kind of ways do you work with your brother? Have you worked with him like with music? Like does he play music with you or do some of your music videos, or is it mostly just video and photo that you work with him?
So in high school, so like actually, God, go back to 2006 through 13, we had a band called Paradox, and I was doing drums in it. He did guitar and vocals, and he would just pretty much write everything.
Okay.
We had a friend in school that did like bass. So it was like a 3-piece. And there's a lot of songs that we wrote out throughout that time. And he kind of stepped away from that over time. But that earlier this year, kind of like, I don't know how, but I just coerced him to like do music again.
You just peer pressured him.
Yeah, I was like, do it.
Bullied your brother, and
Yeah, well, so it was, I was like, we're gonna do this. But yeah, there was like even a song that we wrote back in 2009 called Revolution Rise,
okay,
which is one we just released
yeah.
under Graffiti Black. So it's really cool. It's like seeing him kind of like come back around to it again. I'm like, dope. So it's kind of like a slow domino effect I'm seeing, where it's like we can't just make one song. You just release one song. So it's like we're kind of digging back through this plethora of like old pop punk rock songs
that you guys did. Or?
Yeah. I would say it's like he can write some good like hooks and everything. It's like the stuff's still good. So it's just been more like kind of like digging through them and like cherry picking, like, oh, we'll do this one or this one. We just kind of go with it. But yeah, he's been getting back into it. So there's a ton of music that we did together, how we work together now. I mean, there's a short film thing we did where that's more like a for fun thing. But yesterday I filled in for him for a job at Notre Dame that he couldn't make, so I just ran camera for that. Or there'll be a lot of shoots we tag team for like a lot of other corporate jobs and whatnot. There's times I've had him on for a wedding where he runs camera for one of those, or there's other things I've done too where he's been a part of the process somehow.
So do you guys collaborate? Like, does he have his own thing and you have your own thing, but then you guys just kind of work in tandem with one another, or how does that really kind of work?
Yeah, it's basically that.
Okay.
It's like he does his freelance stuff, I do mine, and then when the paths cross, the paths cross.
The paths cross. Is it easy to work with your brother?
No. Yeah, yeah, I mean, like, we're brothers, so like, sure, you butt heads sometimes, but that's just kind of how it goes. Ultimately, though, it's like, I would say the upside to working with a sibling is that you guys just know how to work off each other, as opposed to like if you're constantly working with a different person, it's like they kind of got to learn your style, or you got to learn theirs, or vice versa. But it's like if he's setting up for a shot there, it's like, okay, he's probably gonna need a light setup here. And it's like, so you just know like the first and second step that already has to happen. So like stuff like that, it's like, yeah, you can see how that makes it way easier. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm just picturing just arguments that you're having with your brother over just like simple, like, no, the shot needs to be like this or something like that.
Dude, stupid. Yeah. But it is what it is.
So I guess to wrap everything up here, I'm gonna ask you one more question here. So what are you most excited about? What are you hopeful for in this night? I'm just gonna go ASMR here.
I don't have headphones, so I can't hear you. Sorry, repeat that question.
No, what are you most hopeful for coming up, and what in either industry really, like for music, like what are you excited for photography? What are you looking forward to? Or?
I would say biggest thing that I'm like hoping for is that I enter a new territory. So I mean, this is more like for God, but for my I'll get my photography stuff in a second. But
Mhm.
I have had like I would say most of my Christian walk has been like kind of average or like more lukewarm, and so over the past year, it's definitely like taken a pretty big leap, I would say. And
You've
so
grown spiritually a lot.
yeah, if like example, it was very hard to read the Bible most of my life. Is just it was boring and I couldn't do it. And now within the past year, it's like I just love reading it.
Mhm. Are you able to like, do you find yourself like able to find the deeper meanings?
Oh yeah.
It-
Well, I mean, it's like you take it and it's just like you're a sponge.
Okay.
You're like, wow, okay, this
Yeah.
used to be so. It was like imagine like you're trying to read it and it's just a brick wall in front of a book.
Oh,
That's pretty hard.
that was me with Shakespeare in high school. I couldn't do
Oof.
it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I mean, just with that, it's like I just am like really excited for like new territory that I haven't been in. But as far as like my photography career, I am very excited to just like do what I'm doing now, but just on a bigger scale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just with the whole like headshots and the pet photography and all that,
Mm-hmm.
just seeing it grow to like new heights.
Yeah.
So that's basically how I can put that.
Are you guys going on tour?
That is definitely a long-term goal.
Okay.
Not happening yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a goal I would love to happen for Graffiti Black.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So that camera right there, where can people find you?
If you want to see any of my stuff, what's a better way to put that? If you want to see any of my stuff on Instagram, I'm there at Jamison Donoho, just at Jamison Donoho. Also, I have my photography website, which is jamesdonoho.com. And if you want to see any of my music stuff, there is Graffiti Black on YouTube. I have a lot of my music on there, and I also have the Graffiti Black podcast on that YouTube channel. So that would be the spots to find my stuff.
I will say, I still think probably my favorite song that you've done is "Dance with Me." I still think that's probably my favorite.
That's the least Christians.
I know, but for some reason, I think I just like the rock and roll,
Yeah.
almost bluesy to it.
Yeah. Like I would argue it's my favorite song too.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's really good.
Yeah.
Alrighty, y'all. Well, this has been the Perception Podcast. Thank you to Jamison Donoho for showing up and being here today. Really enjoyed having you on. If you like this episode, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Later.